All right, so let's go ahead and make a legal D&D Adventure League character. If you're familiar with D&D 5e, which is the rule set that Adventure League uses, it's pretty much the same. It's just all official rules, so there's no homebrew or optional rules used, with a few exceptions. You also can't roll for anything mechanical while making a character. So it's point buy or standard array. You have to take starting equipment, and you also have to take fixed health. I'll have a link to the PDF in the description so you can go read all the rules yourself, but I'll also walk through the process of making a character with you. There's only 2 other things that you should know before we get started. First off, you can use any official rule book as long as it is setting appropriate. So you can't use the Eberron book in the Forgotten Realms. I'll show a list of all the books that are allowed in Forgotten Realms, as that's the main setting. And they don't do that old like player handbook +1 book. You can use all of the official books. Lastly, you can make a character at the beginning of tier 1 or the beginning of tier 2. I'll have all the tiers on the screen. You can make a level 1 character or a level 5 character. And when making a level 5 character, you also get a list of magical items that you can have. All right, so let's get started. We will jump over to D&D Beyond, which is an official resource from Wizards of the Coast. I highly recommend using this, especially for any newer players, but it's good for anyone. I still use this for all of my characters. What you will do is you will go to Collection and then My Characters, and we will click to create a character. For this, I'm going to click Standard Character. I did just make this account, so this specific account does not have any books. It's only going to be the free player handbook resources available. If there's a specific race that you want to play that's not in the player's handbook or a subclass, all you have to do is go over to the other books and say you want to play a fairy that is in the Monsters of the Multiverse book. So when you open it up, instead of buying the entire book, you can scroll way down to their races, and right there. It's in the cart. You could buy just that race for $2. So if you know what you want and it's not in the player's handbook, it's not that expensive. You don't have to buy an entire book just to get one race out of it. So clicking back over here, we're just gonna name this character Tom because I'm not very creative. Is Tom a human? Will Tom be a human? Sure, we'll do a human. Yeah, that can be Tom. Unselect all of these. It all has to be core D&D, and we're making a Forgotten Realms character, and so that's all just gonna be in their standard. You can actually turn these on and use the optional class feature and customize your origin from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So those are allowed. Hit points, as I said, you just use fixed HP. There's no rolling for that. And the rest of this stuff, I'm just going to leave the same. All right, so as I said that we are going to play humans. You do have to use the latest rules. So if you see legacy next to a race or anything, you cannot use it. So that is not an option. We will go with human. We will take variant human because we're awesome. All right, so I've selected all of the ability scores, skills, all of those things. Next, we will move on to the class. Select whatever class you want. Of course, Tom is going to be a basic human fighter. All right, so once you select all of those, if you're making a 5th level character, you can change your level to 5th level. This is where you adjust your levels at. And you'll get some additional options for things to adjust. I'm gonna put it back down at 1 because Tom's just gonna be level 1. And when you get to ability scores, so this only shows up if you're adjusting the ability scores from your native race. For ability scores, you have to choose standard array or point buy. We're gonna go with point buy because you can actually do a standard array with point buy. So put your points wherever you want. If you're brand new to the game and don't know what any of these mean, strength is basically how strong you are. Dexterity it'll be more like you're nimble, like sleight of hand, acrobatics, things like that. Constitution is kind of like your physical, mental fortitude. So if you get poisoned, it's constitution that determines how effective that is against you and how tough you are. Intelligence is more like your book smart, history, investigation, things like that. Wisdom would be like your perception, your tracking skills, those sorts of things. And charisma is how charismatic your character is, how good at persuasion, deception, things like that. Be aware when you're making your class what ability scores are important for that class. All right, so once we have that done, we will move on to description, which is setting your background. I'll just set him as a soldier. And then you get to pick a couple skills to be proficient at. So maybe he is good at sneaking. Yeah, he's a soldier. I'm sure he learned basic medicine. And of course, he did playing cards because, you know, He's a soldier. So down here, you can roll for characteristics. Any flavoring thing, you can roll for that, or you can set that yourself. It's not super important. If you're playing an Adventure League, the only other things that you'll want to make sure that you set, make sure that you set your alignment. Evil alignments are banned, so your alignment has to be non-evil. We'll just make him solid neutral. You can put a faith in there if you'd like to, but it's not necessary. The only other thing, like I said, is your lifestyle, and he will be modest. Everything else is really just flavor for you, the player, and kind of bringing your character to life, but none of it makes a mechanical difference, so your Dungeon Master won't really care, and there's not really too many rules around that. The last thing that we need to do is, of course, take starting equipment. So for this example, I have the option of leather armor, longbow, and 20 arrows, or chain mat. So I want to be a little bit tougher, so I'm going to take that, a martial weapon, and a shield. I actually want a great sword. I will also grab a short sword. I'll also take a light crossbow with 20 bolts. And of course, a Dungeoneer's pack. You can kind of click between the two of them to see what you're making. It's funny that you can have a broken blade on here. Why would you? Okay. We're gonna take a dagger, and I said I was good with cards, so we're gonna take some cards here. I also have a set of commoner's clothes and a pouch containing 10 gold. Add starting equipment, and bam, we have our character. D&D Beyond takes you through the entire process. It is very easy, which is why I recommend it. Once you're looking at this, you might be overwhelmed with all the information on here. Fear not. But the first thing that you're gonna wanna do, click over to inventory. We may have selected a lot of inventory, but that did not equip the items. So we're gonna, so now that I have checked the box for all the different items, you might have seen my armor class jumped up. I now have disadvantage on stealth because I'm wearing chainmail. So let's run through what some of these things do. These are your ability scores up top. If your Dungeon Master asks for an ability check, you can click one of these boxes and it will roll a strength check. Super easy. There's also an app for this, which you can download your character onto your phone. So even if you're going somewhere without service, you can still use D&D Beyond. These are your saving throws in this section here. Again, if I'm gonna do a strength saving throw, I have a better modifier. Bam. Good roll. If you're asked what your passive perception is, this is your passive perception, something else. So you can actually click on the boxes and it will tell you what they are for, and sometimes it will tell you how they generated that. So you can click on your saving throws, see what saving throws are called or are used for. You can click on this box, it tells you about your passive scores, all of that fun stuff. This right here, this middle section that says skills, these are all of your skills. If your Dungeon Master asks for any sort of skill check like stealth, you click the little stealth button. I actually have disadvantage, so I'd have to roll that twice and take the lower of the two, which would be a 10, because that D means disadvantage. And if you click on it, it tells you why you have disadvantage. I have disadvantage because I am wearing chainmail. Certain things might give you advantage with stuff, or if you have resistance because of your race, it would pop up in defenses, and you can toggle different conditions. If they say you're blinded or deafened, you can add that. If you take damage, something else is you can say, hey, I took 2 damage. You're not having to like erase things and write stuff on a piece of paper. And then if you get healed, I got 5 healing. You can't heal over your max, so even though I put 5 heal, it only brought me up to 10. Then another really useful thing, it's your turn. You can look at your actions and you can even filter from your attacks, your actions, bonus actions, reactions, etc. Or they're all listed here. Roll to hit, roll for damage. You can roll to hit. Does a 22 hit, which is the 17 I rolled, plus 5? Yes, it does. 2d6 plus 3. If you want to roll those math rocks, you absolutely can, and it tells you exactly what you're doing. It's a d20, so any sort of attack is just going to be a d20, which is why you see just a plus 5. So you roll your d20, and it's a plus 5. For your damage, it's 2d6 plus 3. Tells you exactly what you need to roll. Then you can click over, you can see your inventory, your carried weight, all of that stuff. You can see all your different features and traits. So if you want to use anything like second wind, that's where you can see all of that stuff listed out. The last thing you may need to know or want to know is if you're playing, for example, with me and I'm using Foundry or some other VTT, If you click this little share button, you can click copy, and I may ask for that code so that I can import your character into the virtual tabletop that I'm using. That is how you do that. If this option is not available, if you don't see share, it's because you made your character private, and you just need to go here and select it to public. So for example, if I put that to private and I go back over here, that share button is gone. So that's how you get that share button, and that is why you may want to use it. That is everything that you should need to know to create your Adventure League character and get started playing at conventions and at your game store or even online with me. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will see you next time.